Good afternoon, Kitchissippi. It is Saturday, November the 9th, and this is a video version of the 412th Kitchissippi Weekly Ward Newsletter. My usual reminder, you can find lots more information about the topics we'll discuss in the newsletter, to which you can subscribe at kitchissippiward.ca. Let's dive right in. First item in the newsletter is with respect to the Commanda Bridge, the Chief William Commanda Bridge, on which I'm standing right now, which is slated to be closed this winter. There's a lot of discussion about what could happen with the bridge over the winter. Why is it closed? What are the opportunities? What are the challenges to doing it? I've got a post on my blog at kitchissippiward.ca that outlines why the city is closing it and some of the conditions that we need to see in order to be able to open it for what it was originally promised to be, which is a winter groomed bridge that would be groomed by the folks at the Kitchissippi Winter Trail. I've got lots of details, lots of considerations for folks in that blog post. Take a look at kitchissippiward.ca. Click through from the newsletter. I have an open house coming up at 1950 Scott. That is going to be on November the 19th in the evening. Virtual open house to take a look at the rezoning that they're looking at there. They're looking at a couple more stories of height. There's some setback changes, and they're looking to remove the requirement for a certain level of residential parking. It's a fairly minor change compared to the original zoning, which made it, I think, a 22-story tower or a 20-story tower, but nonetheless, it is a rezoning that's required in order to do the latest iteration. I've got that open house coming up November 19th. Find out how to register in the newsletter. I have put my housing numbers up online. The CMHC numbers for September recently came out. It's not a great news story for Ottawa. September saw good housing completions on the strength of 658 apartment completions. 896 apartments were started, so we got a really strong 1,200, over 1,200 housing starts this in September. But overall, completions continue to lag the housing targets that we have. The interest rates are falling, inflation is falling, and our message continues to be to the builders: you have very permissive zoning permissions. It's time to build. Builders, it's time to build. The Committee of Adjustment on November the 20th only has one application for our ward at 624 Parkview. The owner is seeking to subdivide the property into 4 parcels for the construction of 2 long semis with reduced rear yard setbacks. The existing dwelling would be demolished. I have details of that Committee of Adjustment hearing in the newsletter. Follow the link. A lot of community announcements this week. The McKellar Park Community Association is hosting its annual general meeting on November the 24th. That should be at the McKellar Park Fieldhouse. Other annual general meetings coming up: Mechanicsville's is going to be on Thursday, November the 14th at 7 p.m. at the Keith Brown Community Fieldhouse. The Champlain Park Community Association at the Champlain Park Fieldhouse will be November the 20th at 7 p.m. Westboro Beach Community Association will be on November the 25th at 7 p.m. and the Civic Hospital Neighborhood Association hosts its AGM on Tuesday, November the 26th at the Hintonburg Community Center at 7 p.m. Devonshire is doing some fundraising, something a little novel. They've created a bunch of merch and clothing that have the artwork of Colin White on it. So Colin's been working with the Devonshire's School Council to create a line of merchandise that they're selling in order to raise funds. Find out how you can purchase some of that in the newsletter. Connacht's annual holiday fundraiser is coming up. There'll be beautiful decor, delicious treats. You can order wreaths, poinsettias, coffee, and Purdy's chocolates. I think that's the same fundraiser as last year, and you can find more details in the newsletter. There's a Housing with Heart concert that's happening on November the 16th. That is in support of multi-phase housing initiatives, implementation of affordable housing here at LeBreton Flats. So find out how to get tickets in the newsletter. There is an interesting talk coming up, the Pollinators Talk at the Churchill Senior Center. The Westboro Community Association, Deb Chapman, has been working with Carleton students on a series of pollinator garden and greening initiatives throughout the ward. There's going to be what looks like a really interesting talk with, I believe she's a forester, Jennifer Forrest. What a great name. on November the 14th at the Churchill Senior Center. There's going to be an evening of Hintonburg history on November the 18th. I know Dave Alston is going to be one of the presenters for that. He's being described here as a Kitchissippi history guru. That is true. And there is also a display of archaeological fragments from a typical Hintonburg house that's been curated by Judith Parker. Drop into the Hintonburg Community Center starting at 7:30 p.m. On Monday, November the 18th, to take in that Hintonburg history. The Hintonburg Artisan Craft Fair, always a big craft fair, very popular, will be held this year on November the 30th. There is a link in the newsletter to the Hintonburg Community Association site at hintonburg.com where you can find the hours for that, but November 30th for the craft fair. The first Unitarian Fall Fair is going to be held on November the 16th from 9:30 a.m. until 2 p.m. That's at their campus at 30 Cleary Avenue. The Parkdale United Church is hosting its online auction that is open until November the 14th. Winning bidders can pick up their items on November the 16th. I've got the link to the auction site in the newsletter. The Parkdale United, the Nepean High School Parent Council has become active again. They are going to be looking at doing some active fundraising. The first fundraiser that they've asked me to advertise is the Purdy's campaign, so the Purdy's Chocolate campaign. Support Nepean High School with a purchase of Purdy's chocolate as part of their campaign. I've got the full details in the newsletter. And then at City Hall, we've got a few fewer meetings to talk about this week. It is always busy, but the next week and a half or so are a little bit less busy with actual committee meetings. The Heritage Committee meeting is going to be on Tuesday, November the 12th. There is going to be the approval, probably, of the Heritage Grant for the building that is at the corner of Island Park and Wellington, Island Park and Richmond. That is 70 Richmond Road. There is also going to be a report on the agenda to designate the Arresta Spa, the old Tony's Shoe Repair building at 1121 Wellington. That, though, there have been some challenges trying to reach the owner, I understand, between the city and the owner. We have done some outreach to try to get him in touch with the city. That connection has now happened. Rather than move ahead with the designation this week, which is very short timing, I've asked that this item be deferred. I'll be moving something to that effect, and I fully expect that that will pass with the support of city staff. So putting that off by a month or so just to give the owner a chance to find out what a heritage designation means. There are also designations at 8 Robert Kemp, 152 Metcalfe, 66 Queen, and 249 Bronson. The Planning and Housing Committee meeting that will be on November the 20th is relatively straightforward. We're going to debate the budget, the portion of the budget that falls under the purview of the Planning and Housing Committee. That is mostly the capital budget that is being spent on affordable housing. Fairly straightforward budget to talk about, but there is always sort of the first rumblings in any given budget cycle at Planning and Housing Committee about any efforts the councillors might be making to add more to the affordable housing pot. A little bit of a wrinkle or interesting piece this year is that there is a memo or a response to a inquiry from Councillor Plante coming to that same agenda with respect to the feasibility of establishing a acquisitions fund for affordable housing. Many of you will remember that I'm working actively with the Ottawa Community Land Trust as they try to get up and started to start acquiring rental housing that is already affordable. The acquisition of rental housing for $15,000, $20,000 a door is significantly cheaper a way to have affordable housing in the city than building new. And preserving affordable housing also ensures that we don't need as much newly built affordable housing down the road. City staff have taken a look at an acquisition fund. They have suggested that other levels of government are getting active on that, and they've suggested that the city should continue to focus on new builds. So we'll see that as part of the overall budget discussion at our Planning and Housing Committee meeting. It'll be a really interesting one, as a significant number of us are interested in seeing the city contribute to the acquisition of affordable housing, whether through our own provider at Ottawa Community Community Housing or through an independent third party like the Ottawa Community Land Trust. And then the final item in the newsletter is with respect to our City Council meeting on November the 13th. They'll table the budget. You already know that there's going to be a proposed 3% tax increase, proposed 3% tax increase, plus some additional tax increase as part of the mix of financial tools that we have to try to solve that $120 million hole. I think it's closer to a $130 million hole in our transit budget. So there will be a tax increase of at least 3% plus some portion to go exclusively towards transit. We'll see within the budget how that additional revenue is allocated. Certainly I have reason to believe that we're going to see some progress on my persistent discomfort with the amount that we're spending on bylaw enforcement. I think we're going to see some higher numbers on there than we have in previous months. So other than that, I expect that most of the council meeting will be relatively straightforward. The one interesting item will be around a motion that was brought by Councillor Brown to remove a bike lane project from a resurfacing project from a portion of road on McBean in Richmond, and to remove eventual fully segregated cycling tracks from that stretch of road in the transportation master plan. I suspect we're going to see some interesting and I hope collegial and polite discussion around, you know, where do we put bike lanes and when, to what extent should we be deferring to local councillors with respect to those projects, to what extent should we be really emphasizing rural autonomy. The urban councillors, of course, tend to be big proponents of segregated cycling infrastructure. That commitment to it may sometimes diminish a little bit the further away from Parliament Hill you get. So those are the items in the newsletter this week. Kitchissippi, Springsteen Place tonight. I hope those of you who are going, including yours truly, have an amazing show. The set list in Toronto from a couple of nights ago was really the concert of a lifetime from what I can tell. Enjoy the show, and if you're not going to the show, enjoy the rest of this week, and thank you very much for watching.